When Anas Arimeo aired his documentary in June last year, he was envisioning a time where Ghana football would take a big step forward. Actually, if you recall, he said in the introduction of that documentary that his work was going to shake the very foundations of Ghana football, and indeed, it did. It wasn't an idle boast. It really tore everything apart, and we are starting from scratch. Today, we are 1 day away from the election to the throne of a new Ghana Football Association president. And that's how we welcome you today to this special edition of Sport on Pulse. I'm Gary Al Smith. And together with my team here, we'll be going through and explaining and trying to piece together what makes the Ghana Football Association elections tomorrow special. But not just that, yet the other thing that has happened today is, as it were, the precursor, the prelude, the calm before the storm. Today they had what they call the Executive Council elections. For keen election observers, it gives us an idea of what kind of polls we are to expect tomorrow. There have been twists, there have been turns, and there's been a lot of drama. Let me welcome my guys in studio here. George Addo Jr., my comrade here at the Joy Sports desk, and also Seydou Adamu. He's our own Ben Efson, pollster extraordinaire. Now, I neglected to do something before coming on air, but I'll try and put out some of his projections onto the screens for you, and you see how accurate he has been so far. At the end of which, he might probably, tell us who is going to win the elections tomorrow. But I hope you enjoy the chat. So today, this morning at 9 o'clock at the College of Physicians and Surgeons, which has become the de facto grounds for the GFA elections. Remember, they had the extraordinary Congress there. They had what they call the Executive Council elections. First of all, Seydou, let me start with you. What is the Executive Council?
Okay, so the Executive Council will be, in corporate terms, the board of an institution. Yeah. So I think that's all. It's the board of the institution.
So if the entire structure is there, the Executive Council are like the neck. They move the GFA.
Yes, they are
the most powerful decision-making body.
Not the most powerful. They are the second most powerful. Mm-hmm. The FA structure is made of the Congress, which is
Congress is obviously the most powerful.
The most powerful. It's made up of the members of the association.
Yes.
So in this case, the GFA has 120 membership. So the Congress is made up of 120 members, 32 from the Premier League division, 48 from the Division 1 League. Then we have 8 from the Women League. We have 2 from referees, 2 from coaches, 2 from footballers, 1 from juvenile football, 1 from schools and college, 1 from security services. So that is the Congress of the Football Association.
Excellent. So right on cue, what Seydou is explaining fits into the graphic you see on screen. Remember, now the 4 main steps as of 3 months ago to normalcy for Ghana football had to do with 1, the normalization committee announcing a roadmap to the GFA elections. 2, there was an election of a Congress, which we covered live and extensively here. And what we have seen today is point 3. Now, an election of an executive council body or executive council members. Now, these will be taken from the newly elected Congress. And that's what Seydou Adamu has just explained. So tomorrow will be point 4. There will be an election of a new GFA president who will come from the delegates, 120 of them. Now that we have laid the foundation, let's go over to Benedict Owusu, who was there for us today. Benedict, thank you for your time and on this special edition of Pulse Sports. Hello, Benedict.
Hello.
Yes, thank you for joining us. You are still at the election grounds.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, now we've had the elections and all that. What is going on there at the moment?
We're waiting for the inauguration of the executive council members. Sorry. So that will be done around 5. So when that is done, then we all, I guess, will leave here and then go wherever we came from. But I mean, it's been a smooth process today. It started around 9:10. That was when the election started. They kept the time. They said it was going to start 9. By 9:10, they have started the process with that of the women looking for one representative among 4 women onto the council. It was Madam Abibata, fabulous ladies, and then Edna Kwagran. We also had Evelyn Asai, and then our own Rosalie Namo. So after voting, which did not take much of a time, Madam Abibata won the election with 8 votes. Edna had no vote. Instance, I had 7 with Rosalind no vote. Of course, it tells you the elite, the women's team, they trust Madam Abibata to, get onto the executive committee or the executive council to lead them. Right after she straight away left the grounds, of course. I mean, she's one person that there are times that you book interview with him, you get to where you guys plan the interview, and you get there, she'll give you a different story. So I wasn't really surprised. But the others expressed disappointment and, of course, still pledged that they will support and work with her. For someone like Evelyn Osasari, this is somebody that she knows very well, calls her mother and all. So she was very elated that the fact that she even lost to her by even a vote. So that was done in the early hours of today. Then we went through with that of the IFA. And surprisingly, out of the 10 IFA guys, 7, I must say it was 7, not 8. 7, came up to be elected for 2 slots on the Executive Council. And out of the 7, the first election had Lemford Asamoah Boateng, who, won a landslide victory in the regional election in the Eastern region, polling 4 votes. So he automatically got a first slot on the ESCO Council in terms of the IFA. The second became a problem because the first one, we had 2 people at the tie. That was Alhaji Sadiq and Alhaji Zeda and Duncan of Central Region. So after, they had to go for another round. That round also ended in a tie. And then another round also ended in a tie where each put 4 votes and there were 2 sport ballots. And per the statute of the FA, that's Article 30 Clause 8. When it happens like that, they would have to postpone until further notice. And it is clearly in the statute that the next election should be on a Congress day. Unfortunately for us, tomorrow, God willing, there's going to be a Congress. So that election will take place tomorrow, God willing, at the physicians, the College of Physicians and Surgeons here in Accra. So that was the story of the IFA. And then we came to that of the District 1, where 9 people were contesting for 3 slots on the executive committee or council. Randy Abbey, of course, with his influence and everything that we know, managed to top there. We also had Makado, who is with the Kotoko, and then Samuel Enim also came through, beating the likes of Loyeya, who was part of the last executive committee. So that was very interesting. Sometime also was the last one I remember he had, was it 13 this time? He had 14. So I spoke to him and he saw that as a progress. And hopefully if God will, in the next 4 years, he comes up again, he feels that he can eventually get in there. So that was the third of the process today. And the last, of course, was the premier side where we had clubs voting for 7 people to choose 5 to represent them on the council. And it was very interesting how it all went down. We saw Dr. Sonny Robin, board member of the BMS, pulling the highest number of votes, getting onto the council. Also saw someone like Fred Achi, as predicted. We also got a nod. And then Udru Safo came through, surprisingly for many. People thought that, Abed Komi, even Frederick Moore of Accra Heart of Hope was going to get there. But Udru Safo went ahead of people. George Amako of Kumasi Asante Kotoko, as predicted, also made it. And then Loziko of Bichim United, asking was able to also made it. So it was Accra Heart of Hope, Frederick Moore, who could not, get onto the council, as well as Albert Komi.
All right, Benedict.
So it was a bit of a disappointment for these guys, but the rest, of course, expressed excitement and delight having gotten the opportunity to be on the council. So now it's all done. 10 people on the executive council. We wait till tomorrow to have that one for the IFA, and then the big one, of course, the president. And if that is done, then that will be complete, and we'll have a 12-man executive council.
Slug. All right. Benedict, thank you very much for your time. We will come back to you later for more on that one. Thank you very much for your time. Right, so Benedict is giving us an overview of what has happened. Because we are here, we are going to break it down into, sizable chunks for you to be able to digest. But essentially, in summary, what he said is that there were 11 places up for grabs today. 10 have been decided. That's it. And we are going to delve into how those were done. George, you had Benedict there.
Yeah.
The women's representatives, the Premier League representatives, the Division 1, and so on and so forth. This program is not a hardcore sports program. It's a general sports program. Explain to people why this executive council are going to be important in the new Ghana Football Association. We all hope will be better than the old one.
Extremely important, because the first task is even to elect the vice president, which wasn't the case before. Before, the president of the Ghana Football Association could just appoint his vice president and decide to work with him. It went along with an emergency committee and all of that. Now, things have changed such that the Executive Council can now decide to do the election. They'll go about choosing the next vice president. That means that they have a very important role to play already.
Sure.
That the president cannot just look at the vice president and choose someone and decide to run, a federation the way he wants to run. It's not going to happen in that one. Now, the next thing is that you see the composition of this Executive Council is such that all the various sections or faces of Ghana football are represented right in there. That we have somebody representing women football, we have others representing the RFAs, we have others representing the Division 1 and Premier League. It makes it really balanced because everyone's case will be heard at the top level. And we know, yes, Congress is the most powerful decision-making body, but of course, when you move away from Congress, you go to the Executive Council, who are running the FA alongside, the GFA president. So this is such an important, very, very, very important. I was just trying to see where we put it. It's almost like maybe what your parliament, where things run through, and they
your
will
legislative body.
Yes, and remember, one of the key things was saying that yes, it was good that the presidential candidates came out with what they wanted to do, but none of that will happen if they do not get the endorsement of the Executive Council. And that is crucial going in. So for all those things that's written in their manifestos and blueprints and all of that, they need to be endorsed by the Executive Council, or they will all sleep somewhere else.
Interesting, indeed. So this is a special edition. What you see on your screen are the elected members of the GFA Executive Council. These ones will be representing the Premier League. So we have those representing Division 1, and then these are representing Premier League. George Amaku is the CEO of Kotoko. Dr. Tony Obin is on the ticket of Mediama. Nana Safu Odro.
Chelsea.
Odro Safu. Chelsea. Frederick Achampon, Ash Gold. Kingsley Osei, Bonsu. What's his nickname again? Lord Zico. Some of you may know him as Lord Zico. So let's go to the next slide, and then you see, I think I saw Randiabe. For this one is for those representing Division 1. Mark Ado, Samuel Enim Ado, popularly known as the manager of Asamoah Jan. Habiba Ataforsin, who is representing women's football. Linford Asamoah Buedu is representing the regional football associations. And then the yet to be decided is what Benedict reported on. Now, if we can come back into the studio, the regional football associations were supposed to have 2 representatives, but as Benedict said, what happened was Linford Asamoah Buedu had 4 votes, and so had the highest number of votes. Now, the second place was taken by 2 candidates, right? Salifu Zida, and we also had Robert Duncan, who all had 3 votes. Now, per the rules of the association's elections, they had to go for tiebreaker. They went on 3 consecutive tiebreakers. They still could not get a winner, and what it means is that tomorrow they will be voting again to break that tie, which is why it is not decided. But one question I'd like to ask my guys is, we have 16 regions in Ghana. Recently, we've expanded from 10 regions, but on the RFAs, the regional football associations, we have only 10 still. Why is that?
Yes, why? Because at the Congress, it was decided that before you get an RFA, you need to put up structures. And one of the structures is that you need to have offices for the RFAs. You also need to have a demarcation for the clubs. The RFAs have jurisdiction over Division 2, Division 3, and juvenile clubs, and even our regional women football clubs. So you must be able to define which of the clubs fall within the new
which geographical space.
For instance, when we go to the Western region, there's Western North and the Western region. Teams like Mediama and Karela, they all fall within the Southern, Western region. So in effect, there are no premier clubs in the Western North. Division 1 clubs, same. We have Nzema Kotoko, Gold Stars, then you have Sky FC, all of them in the this side. So if you rush to say let's create a region for the football association, you may end up creating an office with no activity.
That's right.
Because most of the clubs are centered within the south. So you must ensure that there are structures. First, there are clubs within the jurisdiction. There are people manning it. Even there are districts. You know, the FA starts from a district level, so you must find out whether these regions have district football association. So these are the reasons to which Congress decided that let's take time and put up these structures before we go into the 6 regions. So as we speak, the FA do not recognize the 6 political regions that were created by the government.
By the government.
Yes.
Interesting. So that is why, if you are wondering why we have 10 RFAs or regional football associations when we have 16 regions, those are that's the explanation. So what is going to happen is that definitely by the next tenure, would have set up offices and all that in the new regions, and then we can have independent officers. Or George wanted to say something.
Oh no, that it is perfect point. I didn't expect them to even rush into it at all. It would have been just too complicated to even deal with as a football association. It's just good to take your time and see how it runs.
Let's go into the meat of the matter. First of all, Habiba Atta Forson is a veteran of the women's game. For those of you in the Kumasi area, long before it became fashionable for women's football to be even given attention, this woman was taking girls off the streets and putting them and rolling them into her football academy and activities, and she's a doyen of the football game. She put herself up to be a representative of the women's football system on the Exco, and her closest challenger was Evelyn Insia Asari. The winner, Habiba Atta, did not speak, but Evelyn did. Let's hear what Evelyn had to say after she lost by just 1 vote.
It's so pathetic because I have worked from Monday to today, and I was working towards 10 delegates, and they all assured me, but I'm happy that it wasn't a 0 in front of my name. I'm so much happy. I'm still around. We are dealing with Premier. My team is in Division 1. So they believe that they want Premier to rule them. Why not? I believe that is what they wanted. And I'm so much grateful that Madam won it. Because Madam is like me winning it. So I'm happy.
You have a good relationship with her.
I have a good relationship. Even I wanted to step down. But I realized that people were coming in, and I didn't want people to come to where her votes are. So it was a strategy. So I thank God that Madam won.
And anytime she calls on you to work with her,
I'm available. I'm available.
So what's next?
I'm now pursuing MPhil in order to be able to do my PhD. My team is still there, so I'm still in business. I'm still in women football. Thank you very much. Let me also take this opportunity to thank Mama V. I thank her so much. Thank you so much.
So that's Evelyn Insiansari. She didn't make it onto the, but because of the way she even conducted herself, I can tell you that she's got a lot of goodwill from people throughout the process. She was very classy. You listen to how she congratulated the elderly Habiba Atta Forson and all that, and she's got a lot of goodwill. And somebody whispered to me that Habiba Atta Forson called Evelyn and said, your time is next. You are going to be next because of the way she conducted herself.
It's not about even today's election. Before the election, it had been pre-arranged that allow Madam to go
because of her,
reward her for her long service. And indeed, if you are to talk of women football in Ghana, there is no other than Madam Habiba Atta. In fact, she's the brain behind the national team. As of 1988, when there were no national team, she had a women football club. In fact, there is a letter from the FA at the time, GAFA, Ghana Amateur Football Association at the time.
As it was called then. Acknowledging her club and giving her the right to use her club to represent Ghana in a game against Nigeria. Wow.
So she coined the name Black Queens. So beyond the core that she lacks the age is not on her side. She qualifies at all fronts to lead women football or to be the sole rep of women football today when we are at the crossroads. So I think beyond everything, she deserves it. On the Evelyn side, Evelyn has also worked very hard within the last 5 years. She's worked for Hazard.
She's everywhere.
She's everywhere. She's worked for Hazard Case Lady, worked for Ashtown, worked for Ampim Dakwa. She's the brain behind Ampim Dakwa's annexing of the FA Cup last year and last 2 years, and so she's everywhere.
I've seen her on the national junior
and the
teams,
national team,
senior teams.
Senior team. She was on the Alcon LOC. She's done a lot.
And she said she's doing her PhD now.
Yes, but the constituency is very small, 16 clubs.
Yeah.
Or the delegates are only 16. So you can even sit at a point and talk to all the delegates. They tell you that we are with you. But then we feel that Habibata needs to be rewarded.
Sure.
So Evelyn was not sure where she was going. In fact, she met me and said, "You are not campaigning for me." I said, "But I'm not sure you are going to contest," because there were rumors she was going to give up at the last minute for Madam to go.
Yeah.
And in fact, these were from reliable sources. So she contested because she wasn't sure Rosalind Amu will also relinquish and allow Madam to go. So she felt that if I go back or I step back and allow Rosalind to contest Madam and Rosalind wins, then I mess up.
Yeah.
So then let's all contest. So for me, I was not surprised she got 7 out of
It's
50.
a great idea. It's a good idea to want to reward her for all she has done.
Yeah.
Only problem
But
is age. But it's just because the only problem is she the informed lady, coming with how much the women game itself has metamorphosed over the years. I understand. Sometimes we can have a better way of wanting to reward someone, but you are putting her right in there to get what she has. She's got a lot of the information with how football started in Ghana, women football and all. But maybe we are just at a point where we need a team, or all our national teams need to start chasing the likes of South Africa, Equatorial Guinea, who are jumping away from us. It might not necessarily be what Habibata Fossey knew those times ago. But it's good to have it there.
But my disagreement is that
I really hope
it's
that there
only
is
a board,
constituencies.
and the board do not need to do the legwork.
Yeah.
So the committees are the critical points
I hope
of the FA.
So I'm just coming to the point and saying that to the likes of Evelyn and Rosalind really
They'll-
need to be
yeah,
in.
they will be
because
the
I
people
see them
who
as the
will
young
be
ones.
Yes.
And once they go through it, maybe after they can come on and do the job.
Yes.
That's just the other side. Because it could be a running theme anyway somewhere that someone has stayed in for a long, he has done so much work. Let's reward him, and you stay and you go. But when you do that, you can retard your progress too.
Okay, so we heard from Evelyn Isiasari. Let's hear from Rosalind Amu, who is our colleague. She's a journalist with the Graphic Communications Group. Well, what do we say about Rosalind Amu? She's been in the game for so long. How did she take her loss today? Let's hear Rosalind.
Surprising. So we will accept it in good faith. They have the mandate and they have decided who they want to represent them at the table. Going forward, I'm still a sports journalist. My role in women's football development and promotion cannot be taken away, cannot be underestimated. So if I am allowed, if they consider me good enough, then USCO consider me good enough to play a role, certainly I would. Otherwise, I'll revert back to my role as a sports journalist.
Right, so you have Benedict at the end there speaking. So that's about it for the women. Now let's move on to other things. The Executive Council was also getting a lot of headlines because of two parts. The Premier League representatives and then the Division 1 representatives. Now the Premier League representatives are really, for most of us, going to be what will be one of the most powerful groups in the new Ghana Football Association, because it's when your Premier League is vibrant, it's commercial, it's loud, it's out there, that your football is seen to be doing something, especially on the continental and the regional level. So first of all, on the Premier League side, we had lots of people going to contest. Before today, what were the permutations like?
Well, before today, beyond the individual capacities of the aspirants or the candidates, there were also blocks. Yeah. And the blocks belonged to the presidential candidates. So we had few from George Afriyie's camp, we had few from Palmer's camp, and for the purpose of this discussion, let me still include Palmer because he has a case at CAS. Yeah. There were few from Palmer's camp. I see Randy Abe's camp, Kurt Okriku's camp in it. And yes, I think these are the three camps that came into the picture.
Yeah.
There are about 2 of them that do not necessarily belong to a camp, but I felt that because of their clout, so let me mention Haas and Kotoko. The Haas and Kotoko group with that balance. So now the discussion out there is the success of this election determines how tomorrow's election will
go. We'll come to that.
Because of the number of people that won. But it's not surprising, especially from the Premier League, because it tells to a certain level. I see about 70% of one candidate. Now I see 15% of another candidate in the executive committee. I mean, from the Premier Division, the number of guys that have gone in. But it's surprising. It's surprising that House of Folk couldn't make this list, because from 1957, House of Folk has been on every executive board of Ghana Football Association, except this very one. Yeah. And so I think House of Folk must blame themselves for this. I'm jumping, but I think they must blame themselves. It's shocking. It's shocking that House of Folk couldn't get to this. And for me, this was one of the most easiest election anyone, especially a club like us. Yes, 5 out of 7. I have the list for the 2011. The 2011 went 3 rounds. 2011 had 9 candidates. At the end of the first round, they were looking for 6. At the end of the first round, there were 3 ties. Randy Abbey, Emmanuel, no, the former Becum Chelsea chairman. Then Kujo Fiano. That was after the first round. Then we went to the second round. Then Randy Abbey passed through. Then it went to a 3rd round before Chairman went through. So last year, 2015 went one off. So this year, I expected one off. Therefore, House of Folk should have worked hard.
Well, I don't think House of Folk really supporting the MD. There were issues with how he did endorse, Amanda Clinton. So I don't even think the club were really rallying behind the MD, and it just shows the election.
So now that we've had all the things explained, tomorrow is the big one. Let's see our final tweet that we're talking about. Yes, so Seydou Adamo is here, and he's been doing these permutations. Let's move on to the pie charts that talks about the presidential itself. The next one. No, the next one. Yes, the next one. Excellent. So tomorrow is the GFA elections. Now this is how it's going to be like in terms of the breakdown. 32 people will be voting, or 27%.
Yes, so 32 people, yeah.
Yes, will be voting for, we'll be having, in terms of the delegate, there'll be 32 delegates from the Premier League.
Yes.
There'll be 48 from the Division 1, 20 from the Regional Football Association, 8 from the women's side, and then those small ones are made up of referees, beach soccer, juvenile, the CESADA, the security services, the coaches, the Professional Footballers Association of Ghana, and then the schools and things like that. So based on today's election, it may give us an idea of what we should expect tomorrow. Now let's go to the... Yeah. We don't know who is going to be the GFA president.
So let me give a bit of what happened in 2005.
Yeah.
In 2005, Kwesi Nantachie got only about 4 of the Premier sides going for him.
Yeah.
And got close to 90% from Division 1.
Okay.
That is the World Bank.
Yes, Division 1 is the World Bank. They hold 40% of the elections. So if you win Division 1, you are home and dry.
But what makes Division 1 murky at the point is, if you look at the kind of spread we got in terms of the votes, unless we are saying that the Division 1 election for the representatives on the Executive Council, it's not something that we can look out to say tomorrow. Nobody clearly has Division 1.
No, nobody clearly has Division 1.
And that's where it is.
And that is what makes tomorrow's election so special.
No, but you see, let's not conclude with the final 3.
Yeah,
because the dynamics were a bit different.
There were lots of dynamics.
Because
let's take someone from Kwekwe who got 7.
Yes.
Samtimer got 14. No, 14. He got 14.
Yes.
Gideon Fosu got 17. So you must also do your permutation based on those numbers as well.
Who is in which camp?
Yes, who is in which camp? from those numbers, it's also a determining factor.
But it's going to be competitive.
Okay.
I mean, because the spread is really cool.
So tomorrow, this is the big one. Please join us for the coverage. Today we have given you an idea of the Executive Council elections, which is the prelude, the precursor, the forward to tomorro's big deal.
Please delegates eat before you come tomorrow.
Delegates eat before. There will be an ambulance on the standby.
Yes. I wanted
We
to
are
say
borrowing
the
from
ambulance.
Sir John. Is it John Boydu or Sir John?
Sir John.
Sir John, fear delegates. And that's what happened today. It will happen again tomorrow. Some delegates will collapse. Thank you very much, George Adu Jr. for your analysis. Sedu Adamu as well. We will be your men on the ground on Facebook, Twitter, and also on television tomorrow for the GFA elections to find our new president for the next 4 years. I'm Gary Al Smith, and that's the sport.